Welcome back to the Four Poros. Today we have a crazy finale for you. Make sure you stay till the end. Amin is the starting player. He is playing Annie, Everything Must Burn. Tal is in seat 2. He is on Lux. Try to draw more cards than me. I dare you. He provides the battlefield Candlelit Sanctum. Luca is in seat 3. He is on Leona. Stun you, buff me, rinse and repeat. He provides the battlefield Monastery of Hirana. John is in seat 4. He is on Lee Sin. I have untapped runes, but don't worry about it. He provides the battlefield Targon's Peak. This was our last game in the Origins meta. You can find all the deck lists in the description below. Amin starts the game by playing a Seal of Rage, floating an energy. He follows that up with a Vi Destructive. Tal also floats an energy and plays a Seal of Insight. Then, Tal plays a Soaring Scout. You won't believe it, but Luca also starts the game with a Seal of Unity. He plays a Clockwork Keeper without the additional cost and passes the turn. John plays a Clockwork Keeper of his own, paying the additional cost to draw a card. John gives his unit a buff with the Lee Sin Legend ability. Amin conquers the Candlelit Sanctum with Vi Destructive and gains his first point. He looks at the top 2 cards of his deck and puts them both at the bottom. Tal conquers the Targon's Peak with his Soaring Scout and gains a point. Luca plays his second seal of the game, the Seal of Focus. Luca plays a Solari Shield Bearer to stun the Vi Destructive. Luca gets to buff his Clockwork Keeper from the trigger of his Leona Legend. Upon conquering, he spends that buff to draw a card, and he also gains his first point. John attacks the Monastery of Hirana with his buffed Clockwork Keeper. John defeats Luca's Clockwork Keeper and also spends his buff to draw a card. Everyone has 1 point. John plays a Kiana Victorious and passes the turn. Amin holds the Candlelit Sanctum to reach 2 points. He attacks the Targon's Peak with Vi Destructive thanks to her ganking ability. Vi defeats the Scout and Amin gains his 3rd point. Tal channels an Exhausted Rune. Amin plays his champion unit, Annie Fiery. He untaps 4 runes at the end of his turn from his legend ability and from conquering the Targon's Peak. Tal plays a Riptide Rex and deals 6 damage to the Vi Destructive, killing it. Luca plays his champion unit, Leona Determined. Luca conquers the Candlelit Sanctum with his Solari Shield Bearer. He looks at the top 2 cards, keeps one on top and places the other on the bottom of his deck. John holds the Monastery of Hirana and gains his 2nd point. John conquers the Targon's Peak with Kiana Victorious and chooses to channel an Exhausted Rune. John retreats the Clockwork Keeper to base. John plays a Zonia's Hourglass. John plays a Find Your Center to draw and channel 1 more rune, then passes to Amin. Amin plays a Shakedown, choosing the Leona Determined. Luca lets Amin draw 2 cards to save his Leona. Amin plays Annie Stubborn and returns the Shakedown from his trash to his hand. He passes to Tal, untapping 2 runes. Tal attacks the Candlelit Sanctum with his Riptide Rex. He crushes the Solari Shield Bearer and gains his 2nd point. Tal looks at the top 2 cards of his deck and keeps the cards on top of his deck. Tal plays a Lux Illuminated and passes the turn. Luca plays a Solari Shrine. He considers his options and decides to attack the Targon's Peak with Leona Determined. This prevents John from gaining an extra point by holding that battlefield. Luca stuns the Kiana Victorious and buffs his Leona Determined with his Legend ability. John plays a Discipline to increase Kiana's might to 6 and draw a card. However, Luca counters that spell with Defy. Luca therefore wins the combat and gets his 3rd point. John saves his Kiana from dying using the Zonia's Hourglass. He untaps 2 runes since he conquered the Targon's Peak. John buffs his Kiana with the Lee Sin Legend ability. John attacks the Monastery of Hirana with the buffed Kiana. During the showdown, Amin plays a Shakedown targeting the Leona Determined. Luca is not happy about this and threatens to counter that spell. Luca agrees to not counter the Shakedown if Amin doesn't touch his units for a turn. Amin gets to draw 2 cards. When conquering, John spends the buff to draw a card and channel a rune from Kiana's Conquer trigger. John plays a Sona Harmonious directly into the Monastery of Hirana. John plays a second Kiana into his base. He passes on tapping 4 runes thanks to Sona. Amin plays a Seal of Rage using his Seal of Rage. Amin plays a Void Seeker targeting the Sona Harmonious. John does not have a response and the Sona dies. Amin plays a second Annie Stubborn and returns Void Seeker to his hand. Tal holds the Candlelit Sanctum. He reaches 3 points. Tal plays a Recruit the Vanguard and summons 4 recruit tokens. He draws for his legend ability, then plays a Ravenbloom student. Tal attacks the Targon's Peak with Lux Illuminated. He presents 8 might against 6. Luca plays a Rune Prison to stun the Lux Illuminated. The combat now ends in a tie where Lux has to retreat to base. Luca holds the Targon's Peak and reaches 4 points. He retreats his Leona Determined back to base. He does not seem to have any good plays and passes the turn without doing anything. John holds the Monastery of Hirana and reaches 5 points. John retreats his Kiana to base. John attacks the Targon's Peak with his second Kiana. He draws from her Conquer effect and gains 6 points. John plays his champion unit Lee Sin Center without the accelerate cost. John gives a buff to the Kiana at the Targon's Peak. John passes the turn on tapping 2 runes. Amin plays a second Annie Fiery. His spell and ability damage is now boosted by 2. Amin plays a Void Seeker targeting the Kiana at the Targon's Peak, and he pays the deflect cost. John responds with a Defy to counter the Void Seeker and save Kiana. Amin conquers the empty Monastery of Hirana with an Annie Stubborn and passes the turn on tapping 2 runes. Tal holds the Candlelit Sanctum and reaches 4 points. Tal plays a Blast of Power to kill the Kiana and draw a card from his legend ability. Tal conquers the Targon's Peak with a single recruit token reaching 5 points. Tal attacks the Monastery of Hirana with Lux. He easily wins the showdown and reaches 6 points. Tal reinforces his position at the monastery with the Ravenbloom student and reinforces the Candlelit Sanctum with 4 recruit tokens. Luca plays a Leona Zealot. He attacks the Monastery of Hirana with his 2 Leonas. On attack, he stuns the Lux and buffs his Leona Zealot. Tal decides to let this one go and does not play anything. Luca wins, going to 5 points, and he draws with the Solari Shrine. He also spends a buff at the monastery to draw another card. John starts his turn by playing a Charm. He chooses to move the Riptide Rex to the monastery. Luca responds with a Defy to counter the Charm. John responds with his own Defy to counter the Defy. The Riptide Rex moves, and a showdown starts between Luca and Tal at the monastery of Hirana. John is hoping to weaken the battlefields to try and win on this turn. During the showdown, Luca plays a Rune Prison to stun the Riptide Rex. He buffs his Leona, and now the might of the Riptide Rex is reduced to 1. Tal chooses to do nothing and lets his Riptide Rex die. John was hoping that a trade of units happens. With his win attempt stopped, John attacks the Targon's Peak with Kiana. John wins and reaches 7 points. He channels an Exhausted Rune with the Kiana's Conquer effect, and he buffs the Clockwork Keeper with his legend ability. John plays a second Lycian Centered, tapped and into his base. He passes the turn on tapping 2 runes thanks to the Targon's Peak. It is turn 7. Amin plays a Tibbers to deal 5 damage to all units at battlefields, since he has 2 Annie Fiery. Only Luca's units survive, as he plays a Call to Glory, spending Leona Determined's own buff to increase her might to 7. Amin conquers the empty Candlelit Sanctum with Annie Stubborn and his other Annies to the Targon's Peak, reaching 6 points. Amin hides a card at the Targon's Peak, then at the end of his turn he untaps 4 runes from his legend ability and the Targon's Peak. Tal plays a Progress Day to draw 5 cards. Tal plays a Seal of Insight, and after some thinking he passes the turn. Luca holds the monastery to reach 6 points. He plays a Leona Determined, then a Zonia's Hourglass. He passes the turn. John plays a Charm to move Tibbers into the monastery of Hirana. Another showdown begins at the monastery of Hirana. Amin plays a Ride the Wind to avoid combat and moves his Tibbers to the candlelit sanctum. John says, "Don't worry, round 2," and plays a Dragon's Rage. He targets the Tibbers to move the monastery and fight the Leona Determined. The Zonia's Hourglass saves the Leona Determined, but Luca mistakenly removes her buff here. John attacks the monastery of Hirana with his Lee Sin centered. He presents 6 might against 5. The players discuss whether John is able to win the game from this position, and worried that that might be the case, Tal plays a Falling Comet to target the Lee Sin centered. John responds with a Wind Wall to counter that spell. Although John wins that combat, he had to spend energy to defend himself, which reduces his options for the rest of the turn. John draws for Conquering while being at 7 points. To reach your 8th point in Riftbound by Conquering, you need to have already scored the other battlefields on that same turn. John attacks the Candlelit Sanctum with his other Lee Sin centered. Amin plays a Void Seeker to deal 6 to Lee Sin and draws a card. John responds with a Primal Strength to boost Lee Sin by 7 might. John wins the combat as Lee Sin takes 9 damage in total and still survives. John draws another card for conquering that battlefield. This prevents Amin from winning with a double hold to 8 points. John moves his Clockwork Keeper into the Candlelit Sanctum, hoping he can hold on at least one of these 2 battlefields and win the game. Amin holds the Targon's Peak and is our second player at 7 points. He plays a Falling Star to kill the Lee Sin centered at the monastery. He plays a second Falling Star and kills the second Lee Sin centered. John's plan of holding on for the win is already ruined. Amin copies John's plan and passes on tapping 2 runes from his legend ability. Tal plays an accelerated Thousand-Tailed Watcher. All enemy units have their might reduced by 3 until the end of this turn. Tal attacks the Targon's Peak. He presents 7 might against only 2. Amin reveals a Fight or Flight to send the Thousand-Tailed Watcher back to Tal's base. Tal plays a Ravenbloom Student and a Watchful Sentry, then passes the turn. Luca plays a Clockwork Keeper with the additional cost and draws a card. He plays a second one, also drawing a card. Luca is digging for a way to win the game. Luca plays a Solari Chief and stuns one of the Annies. He buffs his Leona Zealot and attacks the Targon's Peak. Amin does not have any response and Luca wins the showdown. He reaches 7 points. He attacks the Candlelit Sanctum and easily defeats the Clockwork Keeper. He gets to look at the top 2 cards of his deck before drawing one, since he cannot gain his 8th point this way. John, on his turn, plays a Sona Harmonious. He gives her a buff with his legend ability and passes the turn. It is now turn 9 of this crazy game. Amin starts with a stacked deck to look at the top 3 cards of his deck and draw one. Amin plays a Fight or Flight to force Leona Zealot back to her base. Then, Amin plays an Invert Timelines. All players must discard their hand and draw 4 cards. John discards 2 Primal Strength and a Discipline. Amin discards Invert Timelines, Tippers, and a Sneaky Deckhand. Luca discards a Rune Prison and a Facebreaker. Tal discards a Thousand-Tailed Watcher, Progress Day, Singularity, Final Spark, and Blast of Power. Tal cannot believe this, as he had the guaranteed win in his hand. On his turn, Tal attacks the Candlelit Sanctum with his Thousand-Tailed Watcher. He presents 7 might against 6. Luca responds with a Facebreaker to stun both units. Luca buffs his Solari Chief with his legend ability. During the combat, John plays a Find Your Center to ramp and draw a card. The combat ends in a tie and the Watcher retreats to base. Tal conquers the 2 empty battlefields, goes to 7 points, and then draws a card for the second conquer. He rips off the top of his deck a Riptide Rex that he plays immediately to kill the Leona Determined and prevent Luca from winning the game. He plays it at the Targon's Peak. He also plays a Recruit the Vanguard to further reinforce that battlefield and draws a card. Luca considers his options and plays an Eclipsed Herald. This unit can untap with each stun. Luca plays a set Kingpin. Luca attacks the Targon's Peak with both Leonas and one of the Clockwork Keepers. He presents a total of 14 might against 13 defending might. No card is played during the showdown, and Luca wins with the Clockwork Keeper surviving. Luca draws a card from that conquer. Luca attacks the monastery with his Clockwork Keeper. Amin prevents Luca from winning this combat by playing a Disintegrate. He kills the Clockwork Keeper and draws a card. Luca untaps 2 runes for conquering the Targon's Peak at the end of his turn. On his turn, John attacks the Monastery of Hirana. He wins the combat. Tal draws a card and John draws 2 from the conquer and for spending the buff. John plays an accelerated Tasty Fey Folk and attacks the Targon's Peak. He easily defeats the Clockwork Keeper and draws another card. He untaps a total of 6 runes and passes the turn. Amin plays a sneaky deckhand at the empty Candlelit Sanctum. He looks at the top 2 cards of his deck before drawing 1. Amin plays a Falling Star, targeting the Tasty Fey Folk twice. John plays a Discipline to boost his Tasty Fey Folk out of range from the Falling Star damage. Amin passes the turn. Tal plays a Falling Comet to deal 6 to the Sona Harmonious. This time John does not have a response, and the unit dies. Tal draws from his legend ability. Tal conquers the Monastery of Hirana with his Thousand-Tailed Watchers to make a win attempt harder for Luca on his turn. Tal draws another card and hides a card at that battlefield. Then he plays his 3rd Recruit the Vanguard of the game and summons 4 Recruit tokens at the Monastery. He draws 1 more card and passes the turn. Luca plays a Leona Determined. He follows that up with 2 Soaring Scouts. He needs to stop John from winning, so he attacks the Targon's Peak with Set and the Eclipsed Herald. John is out of options and plays an overt operation to buff the Tasty Fey Folk so that it can at least trade with the Eclipsed Herald. The set survives, and Luca draws a card from winning that battlefield. From the Death Knell trigger, John channels 2 runes and draws a card. Luca untaps 2 runes at the end of his turn from the Targon's Peak and passes it back to John. John now needs to prevent Amin from winning by holding the Candlelit Sanctum. Amin also announces to the table that he cannot deal with Tal. John decides to play a charm to move the Thousand-Tailed Watcher back to Tal's base. Tal reveals that his hidden card is a Consult the Past and draws 2. Then John plays a Dragon's Rage to move the set to the Monastery of Hirana. It fights with one of the tokens, then a showdown starts between the surviving units. Amin plays a Disintegrate to deal 3 damage to Set. Now, all units will trade in this combat. John plays another Dragon's Rage and moves the Sneaky Deckhand back to Amin's base. This prevents Amin from winning. He plays a Clockwork Keeper and wonders whether it will come back to his turn. It is now turn 11 and all battlefields are empty with everyone at 7 points. Amin conquers the Candlelit Sanctum, sees the top 2 cards of his deck before drawing 1. Amin plays a Ride the Wind to move the Sneaky Deckhand to the Targon's Peak. He also draws a card for that conquer. He plays a Flash to move the Sneaky Deckhand back to his base. This does not exhaust the unit. Then, he moves it to the Monastery of Hirana to score the 3rd battlefield in 1 turn and finally get the 8th point to win the game. What an ending. That was a hell of a game. By far the longest game we've played. This was also our last game in the Riftbound Origins meta. Stay tuned for our Spiritforge gameplay coming soon. Ciao!